Over 400 years separated the last events of Nehemiah and the final prophecy of Malachi recorded in the Old Testament, circa 425 BC, to the beginning of the New Testament, circa 6 to 4 BC. Because there was no prophetic word during this time, this period is sometimes called the 400 silent years. For about 100 years after the close of the Old Testament canon, Judea continued to be a Persian territory under the governor of Syria, with the high priests exercising a measure of civil authority. But when Alexander the Great defeated the Persian king Darius III in 3 decisive military battles, he gained control of the Persian Empire, which also included Judea.
We don't know what this new conqueror will do to us.
After I prayed last night, God spoke to me in a dream that I was to be dressed like this when we met this new military leader from Greece.
I bow before and praise the God of the Jews.
Commander.
You worship our God?
No, but he came to me in a dream and showed you dressed like this, and I understood that I was to seek you out.
Then I would conquer all of Persia.
In the temple, Alexander offered a sacrifice according to the priest's direction.
In our own scrolls, the prophet Daniel said that a great Greek warrior would come and conquer all of Persia.
I am the one your God predicted. In honor of your God, you can live according to the laws of your God and be free from tribute in the year of your Sabbath.
In 323 BC, Alexander the Great died by either poisoning or sickness, which then started a struggle among his generals for the control of his empire. His empire was divided into 4 regions, governed by 4 generals. Ptolemy Soter I controlled Judea, and the Jews had some religious freedom, but with economic oppression. In 198 BC, Antiochus III defeated Ptolemy V Epiphanes and brought Judea under Seleucid rule. The early Seleucid toleration ended when Antiochus IV Epiphanes ordered a Hellenization of Palestine. He forbade keeping the Sabbath, Jewish circumcision of children, and ordered that copies of the Torah be destroyed. But when Antiochus IV Epiphanes sets up an image of Zeus in the Jewish temple and sacrifices a pig on God's altar, an aged priest, Mattathias, intervenes.
This is blasphemy. No one is like our God.
Mattathias had 5 sons, with his son Judas Maccabeus, the Hammer, as primary leader. They and their followers repeatedly fought the Seleucids with hit-and-run tactics.
They fall on us like a hammer!
For 24 years, 166 to 142 BC, the Jews fought the Seleucids. Combined with the growing Roman pressure on the Seleucids, the Jews finally gained their independence from Syria.
We need to cleanse and rededicate the temple, but there is only one bull left from the high priest in the days of Samuel, and it will only last for 1 day.
It will take us 8 days to purify more oil.
But the light for the eternal flame kept on burning for 8 days and nights. And for 100 years, the Jews had freedom. The descendants of Mattathias took over the office of high priest, even though they did not belong to the line of Zadok, as God had instructed. This became known as the Hasmonean dynasty and lasted from 142 BC to 63 BC. But the Hasmoneans began to follow Greek influence, the very thing they had at first resisted. In 63 BC, the Roman general Pompey took Jerusalem, and the people of Judah once again found themselves under a foreign conqueror. With continuing unrest in the land, the Romans made Herod the Great king of Judea. He was a Jewish proselyte who was Idumean or Edomite by birth. He had great political ambitions, and he promised the Roman Senate that if they would make him the ruler of Judea, he would ensure the Jewish people would not revolt. Herod tried to curry favor by building a beautiful new temple for the Jews, but the people despised him. Herod the Great murdered members of his own family and even rabbis as he ruled Palestine from 37 BC to 4 BC. He was the King of the Jews when Jesus Christ was born. The expulsion of the Jews from their land, as predicted by the prophets, occurred in two different exiles. The first dispersion started in 740 BC with the conquering of the northern kingdom of 10 tribes by the Assyrians. The second dispersion began as Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians, with deportations in 597 BC, 587 BC, and 582 BC. Most of the Jews did not return, but lived as colonists in the Persian Empire, which had conquered the Babylonians. The exiles studied the Old Testament, believing that the exile had come about because of lack of knowledge and obedience to the Torah. The scribes became the experts in the Torah, and the rabbis were the teachers who passed on this scribal understanding of the scriptures. After the destruction of the temple in 587 BC, the local synagogue then became the place of education and worship for the Jews. Synagogues continued even after the temple was reconstructed by Zerubbabel in 516 BC. The Jews of the diaspora primarily spoke Greek, and the Old Testament was translated into Greek in 250 BC. According to Jewish legend, it was translated by 72 Jewish scholars in 72 days. Septuagint is the Latin word for 70. The Septuagint was likely translated in Alexandria over a longer period of time. The religious party of the Pharisees probably began as the Holy Ones when the Maccabees tried to purge the land. Then, when the Maccabees turned towards Hellenistic culture, these Holy Ones were separated from them, the likely source of the name Pharisee. The Pharisees interpreted the law strictly and sought to make their understanding binding upon all Jews. The Sadducees likely derived their name from the priestly line of Zadok. These aristocrats only believed the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They also did not believe in the resurrection and saw themselves as the guardians of temple policy and practices. At this point of history, in God's perfect timing, came the Son of God.